£2,000 a day on cocaine. And in 2020, in March, I was in a hotel. I planned my kind of suicide. I got a load of tablets, got some cocaine. That particular night, I hadn't heard from anybody of my family. My 4 boys had kind of disappeared. And then I pinged a text message from my 11-year-old saying, "Dad, I love you. My mum's told me what you're doing, and I want you to come home. I love you." And for whatever reason, I guess they call it rock bottom. I got in my car and I drove home. And I walked through the door. I went into a spare bedroom. Wife came in, sat with me and said, "You need to get some help. You're a drug addict." And I'm like, am I a drug addict? I've got depression because I live with you. I suffer from hay fever. That's why my nose is bleeding.
Hey guys, welcome back to After Hours. This one is another episode where I finished recording and just honestly had to sit there for a minute, taking it all in. What a guy, what a story. Richard Chapman grew up in Bradford, the youngest son of an HSBC area director and the grandson of a West Yorkshire police superintendent. He should by rights have had a very orderly, very respectful and very structured life. He was sent to private school and then he was put in a suit and sent to Midland Bank at 18. Richard would have been much happier being a labourer down in the builder's yard. But it turns out he was extremely good at the banking. So much so that his dad had to give him a weekly call to let him know that he was hitting targets. But he was always very formal with that. And Richard was a bit like, why can't we just do this at home? He was still living at home at this point. Then at 29, Richard thought, you know, I've made it. I'm on top of the world. I've got a great family. I'm making lots of money. And he walked into a bar in Guiseley and a man with tattoos on his face said to him, "Would you like a line of coke? I sell to some of the other directors down at your bank." And Richard said, "Yeah, why not?" So after that, this man with tattoos gave him his business card. And 17 years later, £2,000 a day and a money laundering operation later, he walked into rehab in Scarborough with 3 grams left and snorted the lot before he went through the door. Richard's now 6 years clean, the finance director of Ark House, which is the exact same rehab that he walked in and saved his life. He does a podcast with the guys there called In Recovery, and he has 5 boys, a dog called Rolo, and he now walks along the North Bay seafront every day and can actually hear the seagulls now. As always, guys, listen for the similarities and not the differences. Here comes Richard, and I'll see you at the end. Richard, welcome to After Hours, man. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, yeah. And you're in sunny Scarborough, Scarbados. How's the weather there today?
The weather today, it's a little bit cloudy, but I think we're due another heat wave, people are telling me.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's
I've
just started over here. I was like, sorry?
Go on, carry on.
I was going to say, it's just started here. We've started having the new heat wave. It doesn't get as hot here in the Isle of Man as it does in the UK, but we'll take our 21 degrees when you guys are basking in like 30 odd degrees. So yeah, it's good. It's good. So tell us, were you from Scarborough originally? Tell us about your childhood, where you kind of grew up, and when you had your first session, really, when you had your first drink.
So I was born in Bradford.
I was going to say,
I spent a few years in Bradford, and then my dad was a manager for Midland Bank at the time. So we got moved down to Hitchin in Hertfordshire. Down there for about 6 or 7 years. Back up to Wakefield in West Yorkshire, where I spent the majority of my adult life. And I guess for me, you know, I'd been in a school in Hitchin, then I moved to another school in Wakefield, and then I was pulled out of that school to go to private school because my dad's, being a traditional Yorkshireman, kind of thought, I'll send my 2 sons to private school and I'll send my daughter to state school because she'll just be making teas and not have a job kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he
Wow.
and he was a bit of a tyrant.
Uh-huh.
He was very powerful. You didn't really go in and ask for the television controller. He ruled the house.
Yeah. With a bit of fear, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I guess I grew up in fear.
Mm-hmm.
My first sort of recollections when I started to look back at my life, when I came into this treatment centre, I was overpowered by him, and I have recollections of stuff that happened that shouldn't have really happened. Beaten up, verbally abused. Was never really treated the same as my brother and sister. I
Right.
always felt the odd one out.
And sorry, where were you in the kind of in the progression? Were you the middle one or the youngest? What were
I
you?
was the youngest.
You were the youngest, right? Okay, so yeah.
Yeah. So there was about
'Cause
2 years between us.
Yeah, so not much at all. And
No.
what was your mother like in all this? Was she scared of him as well, or
Yeah.
yeah, yeah?
Yeah. I mean,
And that's
when
not.
my dad passed away when I was in recovery a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
and can remember my mum saying to me, I used to say to her, "Are you all right, Mum?" And she said, "I've never felt so free at 80 years old than I do today."
And she'd stayed with him all that time then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true what they say. When someone is being abused, it's like they don't know anything different and they don't know how to get out of it. And sometimes that's the norm, and that's where their comfort, their familiarity is. And people talk about little T's and big T's, but it sounds like you've had a mixture of both of them, kind of growing up.
Yeah. I mean, I've got loads of memories of, my mum cowering in a corner, my dad coming in from work, and he expected his tea to be on the table. He expected us all to sit quietly. And if the tea wasn't right, there were times where it'd just get thrown against the wall.
Jesus.
Do you remember the old, what do they call them now? They used to fry chips, in fat and what. My mum used to make homemade chips.
Yeah, in the deep fat fryer and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were great. Those things were lethal, but they were great chips, but not healthy at all for you.
Well, he had one of those in his hand, and he was going to throw it over us.
Oh, Jesus.
And then we got him out of the house, and we double glazing, Everest double glazing, and he put his fist through both of them. Straight through. He was coming after us.
Now, tell me, Richard,
there's lots. Go on.
I was going to say, was he a drinker? So would he come home and drink, or would he have been to the pub before he came home? This was just him sober,
just
straight?
Him
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I was going to say they're not like. I mean, my dad, I'm still scared of my dad, but he was never an abuser. He shouted a lot. Do you know what I mean? And he looked down at you through the top of his glasses type thing. Me and my dad have a great relationship now, but he did have that old school, I think he was frustrated a lot, because those guys from the old school, the way they were brought up was much more brutal, I think, than the kind of whatever it is going on now. Do you know what I mean? We don't kind of bring kids up with an iron fist type thing, but I think they were brought up even worse than some of us. Do you know what I mean? And it's that's what they were used to, and it was like the man brings home the money, the wife has the dinner on the table, all of that kind of old school mentality. So what difference did he know? Do you know what I mean? But obviously, there is anger there because he's maybe not fulfilled in his job, or I mean, it sounded like he had quite a good job.
Oh God, listen, my dad was brought up he was the only child, so he was adored by his parents.
Yeah. Got what you wanted.
His dad was the superintendent, the police superintendent of West Yorkshire, but I guess it was a very strict family to be brought up in. Yeah, and my dad was just a really, really powerful guy who, he ended up being an area director for HSBC Bank. A very powerful job, and everybody who worked for him thought he was brilliant, thought he was amazing, the most placid person you'll ever meet. But mine's a slightly different story, as is my family, and it wasn't all the time.
I suppose, with the stress in his job, and then he's coming home, and if anything is slightly out of place or something just ticks him off, then that's his outlet, isn't it? Yeah, crazy. Yeah.
So that was me until kind of school was awkward for me. I never really fitted in at private school because I didn't really like listening in lessons. I wasn't particularly intelligent. I wasn't engaged. I found a group of lads in that school who played rugby. We were a private school. So, I found my release on a rugby field where I could, bizarrely inflict violence on somebody for 80 minutes and not get told off.
Yeah, that was part of the game.
Yeah, and that was my first kind of release, my first kind of, well, this is where I'm meant to be. This is how it's going to happen. This is what's going to happen on this field today. I'm going to, brutally upset as many people as I can. And I ended up, I was a really good rugby player. I played for Yorkshire. I played for North of England. And our school at the time, Silcote School, was one of the best rugby schools in the country. And I was playing rugby in the first team at 15 years old. Most people didn't get into that team till they're 17, 18.
Were you a big guy then at that age?
I wasn't particularly big. I had no fear.
Right. You were just like, let's go, plow in.
Yeah. And, I guess I was pretty good at it. I guess the worst thing for me was when I came off that rugby field and I went back into that changing room. Yeah. I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like my body. I wasn't as formed as other people in that room because they were 2 or 3 years older than me.
Yeah.
So I had this whole body dysmorphia thing going on. I would turn into a shallow little kid and walk out and wait for Wednesday or Saturday to play rugby again.
So even though on the field is where you felt most comfortable, but then straight away in the changing room, you felt like put right back down to, feeling awkward and feeling not fitting in. Yeah. Wow. That's mad. But I mean, and that's, as you say, you're 15 in a changing room with 17-year-olds. Those 2 years are massive in that, adolescent growing up phase. So yeah. Wow. And
it's interesting because I see it today because I've got 5 boys.
Right.
I have a 17-year-old at home at the minute who plays cricket for Yorkshire, who's, an unbelievable sportsman. I look at him at 15, I look at pictures at 15 because I kind of sometimes just look at him and think, I can remember that age. And I look at him now at 17 and he's a man. At 15, we're not how we were.
Exactly the same. Like my stepson, he's 15 now. He's coming up for 16. But when I first knew him, he was like 12, 13. And the change in that, do you know what I mean? And like before my very eyes, he is becoming a man. And it's like, Jesus, I need to watch myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Yeah. And so at 15, you're hanging about with the rugby lads. Have you had a drink yet, or with your mates, behind the bike sheds or anything like that? No. Right.
It was really, I left school and the only thing I'd ever tried was Craven A cigarettes.
Yeah.
And I used to have them, at the bottom of the golf course where they were in school, because we had a golf course.
Yeah.
And I never really touched
Cravenay for a
alcohol.
while. I tried Cravenay for a while because I think I saw a photo of Kurt Cobain smoking some Cravenays, and I thought, I'm going to be really grungy and retro and try those. Oh, I hated them. I was like, these are stinking.
Yeah.
They're like Rothmans or something. So
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on. You yeah. So
So
when did you?
when I left school at sort of 17, did pretty
Yeah.
poor in my exams. One of the things that I remember was I got two O levels, and I had to go back to school to do a year. And that year, my dad turned up at school, walked into the headmaster's office and said, yeah, he's coming back to school. Yeah, he's doing his O levels and he's doing the 5 that you've sorted out for him. But he ain't playing any sport.
The one thing you're good
So that
at.
was it. All my mates went on a rugby tour to Canada, and I didn't. And I didn't play any sport for a year.
And was this your punishment for not like doing well in the rest of it academically?
Yeah.
Wow. And you know what, Richard? Some people just aren't, like, I wasn't built academically, but my whole life was constantly pushed towards that kind of, you will work in an office, you'll do this, you'll do that. I put a majority of that down to, my drinking being unfulfilled in my life, because now I'm a gardener and I absolutely love it, but it took me till 40 to realize that was where I was meant to be, outside doing something with my hands rather than sat in an office all day. But
Yeah.
like school, the whole school system is set up for that. And it's like, but you were obviously excelling or at least enjoying the rugby. So why weren't you allowed to kind of continue that and do something with that? It's mad.
I mean, the other interesting thing when you talk about there, you go into a careers meeting, don't you? 14, 15 years old at school, you meet this careers teacher who's never spoken to you in school. And I can remember just sat there and he's saying, right, do you want to be an accountant, a solicitor, a banker, barrister or whatever? There was no, do you want to be a bricklayer, a gardener, a joiner or a plumber? That wasn't allowed at our school.
Yeah.
And then, I leave school and what do? I go straight to a building site with one of my mates and I'm humping plasterboard round, suntan, started to have a beer with all the other lads on the site and loved it.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. I felt complete. I felt like a human being. 6 weeks I worked in Bingley. And then I came back to Wakefield to go to a sportsman's dinner. And I'm sat round this bloody dinner table with my mum and my dad. My dad walks in, where have you been? I said, I've been on a building site. Love it. What are you doing tonight? I said, I'm going to a sportsman's dinner. He said, right, okay. He said, well, I'll tell you something, son. You're not going to be going back to that building site. You're going to go with your mum on Saturday. She's going to take you to Marks and Spencer's. You're going to get a suit. You've got an interview at Midland Bank at Ossett on Monday. You've already got the job because your dad's the area director and you're going to work in a bank.
And how old were you?
18.
Jesus.
So on the 1st of the 8th, well, I didn't have a choice.
You didn't have a choice, yeah. I mean, even though looking now, we're like, well, you're 18, you're a man, you can do what you want. But obviously, there's still that fear factor. This is your dad. He's telling you what to do. And obviously, he's got your roof over your head. So, Jesus.
And on the 1st of the 8th, 1988, I walked through the doors of Midland Bank in Wakefield and started my banking career. And at that point, my sister was working at First Direct. My brother was Halifax lending manager, and my dad was the area director. And I was known as, this is Richard Chapman, or your son of Brian Chapman. And I had that all the way through my career, which added, a load of pressure to me. I was drinking, but I didn't believe that. I only believed I was drinking
I mean, I can
alcoholically when
imagine. Sorry, but
go on.
I was going to say, sorry. Like there was the stress and all that, but I'm sure it opened doors as well. Being Brian Chapman's son, do you know what I mean? Like that obviously was. Oh, he's like, you know, the kind of area manager, he's top dog. But the pressure that must have put you under as well to do a job that you're not really that into, you're not really wanting to do it, and then suddenly you've got to keep up to this kind of extreme kind of standard. Yeah.
Yes. And what happened was it was the time when banking was changing and selling was becoming quite important. And I don't know how I managed to do this, but I managed to become a really good salesperson for the bank. And what happened there
Which they love.
Yeah, what happened there was my dad used to have to ring me on a Friday at Dewsbury branch. Hiya, can I speak to Richard? And I go, yeah, it's Richard. Hi, this is Brian Chapman. I'm the area director for Midland Bank. I've just got the figures down for last week, and I just want to say congratulations. You were the top performer in Northern Division, and I'll be sending you some vouchers down. And I'd be like, okay, Dad, thanks very much. I say, okay, thank you very much. And I used to do stuff because I was still at home. I used to say, can we not just do this over a dinner table? Yeah. It's just fucking stupid, is this? And it'd be like, do you not think it's hard enough for me having to ring you and give you this adulation? I wish you were like your brother who was just sat in a corner, just lending money.
Wow. So actually you were doing really well, and he hated the fact that he had to phone you, like be all formal and actually congratulate you and send you vouchers. So he hated that. So you're excelling, you're doing what he's asked you to do, and you're doing well at it, and he's still got beef with that. Jesus, man.
Yeah.
That's like, so then, that's got to be tough. That's got to be tough.
Yeah. And then what happened was, so you roll forward a few years, I've ended up being, becoming an area manager, running a team of commercial bankers. And right at that point, my dad had 4 heart attacks in a car coming back from a Leeds United game. And I went to, A&E, and he was sat in hospital all wired up. And he said, this is the first time I've thought about my family and not Midland Bank. I'm never going back. So at 51, he retired far too early, got a full pension, and was sat at home polishing his silver, playing golf. Sky Sports had just come on, so that was like his element, wasn't it? Sky's on. Mum's running around doing everything. I've left the home and got married. And ultimately, I ended up, I guess, doing his job. You know, I ended up sat behind the desk that he sat behind. And during that period of time, I was about 29, loving life, amazing
and
kids.
I was going to say, have you got married and had kids at this point at 29? Yeah, moved out.
Yeah, so I got married, divorced, and remarried again.
Right.
First marriage was all about 21 years old, getting married because my mates were getting married. Had 2 boys, which I'll never, regret that. But just the wrong time. Too young.
Well, it's too young, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? That's
yeah,
it's mad, far too young.
So I then meet my wife, who's been my wife for the rest of my life as it stands, and everything was great. 4 beautiful boys. Life's brilliant. I'm coming back from a golf event in Ilkley. Day before bank holiday in August. And I go into a bar in Guiseley called Cellar V.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy in there with tattoos all over his head. And he said to me, you're one of the directors, aren't you, at the bank? I went, yeah, I am, yeah. He said, yeah, I'm Paul. I went, hiya. I give some of your directors some cocaine. Do you fancy some? And I looked at him and I went, yeah, I do. Never had it. Never bought it. Never been anywhere near it.
I was going to say, have you had it before? No. Yeah.
And I went into that toilet and I had a line of coke. Had my pint. Said to him, I'm off. And he gave me his card. And I put his card in my wallet and I went home, and I can remember the weekend. I had mother-in-law around, father-in-law around, my mum and dad around, barbecue, lovely time, lovely weekend. Monday, bank holiday, same again, nice. And then I got in the car on Tuesday and I went to Leeds, and I went to my office in Leeds, and one of the guys rang me and said, the figures are out for next quarter. Do you want to meet in the living rooms for something to eat, and we'll have a chat about next quarter's plan? I went, yeah, great. I'm just going to Pret a Manger. I'll meet you in there at 1:30. And I went down to Pret a Manger, and it's just unbelievable. I go to Pret a Manger and I order my flat white. I get my Benson and Hedges silvers out to have a cig. And as I'm paying for this flat white, I paid with my card, and his card fell out, and it said, Paul, love you long time. And I walked outside, I had a cigarette, I'm having my coffee, and this number's there, and I thought, I'll ring him. I'm going to ring him. Mm-hmm. Right? And I rang him up, and I said to him, mate, it's Rich from bank. Hiya, mate, you all right? I went, yeah, I'm good. I said, have you got any of that stuff? And he's like, yeah, how much do you want? I went, what, 500 quid's worth? He went, yeah, when do you want it? I said, oh, well, when can you come out? He went, I'll meet you in living rooms at 12. I went, oh, brilliant. See you then. Never bought cocaine. Was like nervous as hell about it all. I'd only ever had 2 lines. How old are you?
You're 29. You're 29 at this point, yeah?
Yeah.
29. So still a bit wet behind the ears and thinking, I'm not just going to have 2 wraps. I'm going to buy 500 quid's worth.
Yeah. And I met him I can remember it. I wore a bloody Paddington Bear duffel coat from Burberry. I'm sat, and he walked in and he put a packet of Benson and Hedges Gold on the table. He went, they're in there. I went, I'll give you your money. And he went, no, go get us a pint. Pick the cigarettes up or the packet, take it downstairs, have a line, just put the 500 quid in the packet and off you go. And that guy became my best mate for 17 years of my life.
Yeah. And I mean, he obviously knew the business, and he knew the bankers world, and he knew who had money, because like the fact that you phoned him up and he said, I'll meet you down in the living rooms, he obviously knew that that's where the bankers kind of hung out as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how quickly after that did your habit kind of start forming? Because at this point you were probably just drinking recreationally. The drinking wasn't a problem at all at that point. No,
not at all. Drinking.
What do you think?
I guess. Go on.
I was going to say, what do you think was the catalyst there? Because obviously you tried it in the toilet, and the thing is with cocaine, it's moreish, isn't it? Let's be honest, it's very moreish. It's not a straightaway addiction, but if you've got the money, which clearly you did, buying £500 worth at the time, I guess that was just an easy snowball. But do you think it was just the excitement? You're thinking, I'm 29, I'm a banker. It's like the kind of, living in the city job. Let's get some white stuff up our nose. What was the kind of enticement, do you think?
Well, listen, I was born when I was born in the 70s. I was a 90s. In the 90s, you've got Oasis, you've got Blur, you've got all that scene going on. Bankers like me earning stupid amounts of money, just come out of one sort of marriage with another girl, but not married at this moment in time. Life was brilliant, and Greek Street in Leeds was amazing.
Yeah.
I had a great job, and for the next 5 years, it was bloody brilliant.
Yeah.
It was bloody brilliant.
Because you're as you say, you've made it. You're making great money. You've got your family. You're making money. Like what's not to? There's no problem there. You're just going to live the high life. And I like I say, I think you're about 10 years older than me, Richard. But I grew up in the 90s as well. The 90s got a lot to answer for because it was just pure hedonism. Do whatever you could as hard and as fast as you could. The drinking, the drugs, and like that's what we were seeing on. Maybe not so much in FHM, but it was indirectly kind of showing us the way. Oasis, Blur, all the rest of it. They were all on TV. Train Spotting was out in the cinema. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that we were all taking heroin, but it was that excess. There was the film, I saw a reel today, Human Traffic was out. There was ecstasy was everywhere. It was just, if you weren't doing it, then you weren't cool, Well,
you think, don't you? In Manchester, there was the Hacienda. In Leeds, there was Back to Basics. It was bonkers. And, I was one of those guys that would, I'd have cocaine Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and just enjoy it. And then, like everybody, well, certainly for me, a switch. I went past the, whatever you call it, a switch came on, and I found myself, 3 or 4 years later on, 4 or 5 maybe, setting off from my house in Denby Dale, an 11-mile journey to Leeds, thinking, right, I just need to go to Leeds. I just need to get to Leeds, get in my office. It'll be all right. And, I'm going past junction 41, M1, and my car's already turned off. I'm going back to the same drug dealer. I've only ever had one drug dealer. I'm going back to him. And at 7 o'clock in the morning, he's passing me 7 grams of coke. And I would sit in a car park overlooking my office, and I'd have a line of coke. And I knew if I had 3 lines, that was it. I couldn't stop. And I'd have 3 lines. And I'd go down and I'd get a Pret a Manger coffee. I'd go back up to my car. And by 11 o'clock, that 7 grams is gone. And all I've done is sit in my car. I'm now trying to run the bank in a car, off my tits, with cocaine, just dry sniffing.
Yeah.
And then, at 11:30, there'd be a call made to him, and he'd just come and meet me at 12:30. Not in a pub. I'd just meet him on a street. He'd park his car up in Leeds. I'd meet him there. I'd get another 7, and I would move my car out of the car park and go to an Asda car park or a Sainsbury's car park and just sit and take cocaine till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I'd make a decision whether I was going to travel home or I was going to check into a hotel for the night. And more often than not, I'd check into a hotel in the night and he'd bring me another 7. And that'd kind of see me through until the morning. And that's what my life turned into. I was spending, it was 100 quid a bag, wasn't it? I was spending £2,000 a day on cocaine.
A day. Now, when you're saying that, like that would be a Monday or whatever, what you were still doing your job, so you were doing it kind of remotely, I guess, before even remote working was a thing. Was your work aware, or were they thinking he's starting to slide, or were you still doing the job?
No, I was still doing the job, and I was still very, very successful at it. The thing that really fucked me over was when, you remember when Blackberries came out?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Like early
Blackberries came
noughties,
out,
yeah.
and yeah, and everybody had their emails on a BlackBerry, and you had to
Yeah.
start filling in your calendar to say where you were. And I was like just never in the office. And then,
Yeah.
you get people sending emails at 2 o'clock in the morning just to prove that they were up and working. And, they talk about resentments. I just started to have a massive resentment about the bank and a massive resentment about everything in life. And I was hiding it from my wife. I was hiding it from the kids. I was still trying to function. I was still trying to be present. And it was just becoming really hard work.
Mm.
And then what happened was the bank made a decision to get rid of a tier of management that were earning loads of money and replace us
Mm.
all with graduates. So I got made redundant.
Oh, Jesus.
Huge payout.
Yeah.
And what does a banker do with a huge payout? He thinks, I'll tell you what, I'll go buy a deli. I'm going to run a sandwich shop because I like cooking.
What are you, about 34, 35 at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're gonna run a
So
deli.
I open a sandwich. I open a deli sandwich shop, and brilliant.
Yeah,
Cash business, amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Knew a bit about accountancy, and it was like I could continue using drugs. I had a load of money in
Well,
the bank.
even more so because you're kind of your own boss, so you can just nip
Yeah,
out the back, or you've got a little office in the back of the deli, whatever. Get the
yeah.
staff out the front. Yeah, crack on. Sniff,
So
sniff.
I like exactly like you said. I'm round the back upstairs on a load of old fridges, knocking up lines of
Yeah,
coke. And then at the end of the day, I come down, pick the till up, take all the cash out of it that was in a box that we used to keep for deliveries, and then the rest of it would go through the accounts. And
yeah.
all the while, I was also a bit involved with this drug guy and helping him launder a bit of money.
Mm,
So I was
yeah.
laundering money for this drug cartel, which were not particularly nice people. So I was entrenched in that,
No.
trying to run a family, trying to get my head around the fact I'd gone from an area director to now making egg mayonnaise sandwiches on a Monday.
But
And,
also, can I ask, like, when you got a massive redundancy package and you bought the deli, but I'm guessing your money was dwindling, because if you're still paying out like a couple of grand a day on a coke habit, you're not
yeah,
saving anything. Your money's going down faster than it's going up. And
yeah.
obviously you don't have the kind of banking job. I'm sure you're making a bit off on the side with the money laundering and all that stuff, but the lies are kind of compounding. And was your wife aware of any, like, did she know that you did a bit of sniff every now and then, or the weekends, or was it just she didn't know?
She questioned me a lot and I denied a lot. And
Yeah.
I guess because I could still take the kids to school and I could still mow the lawn on a Sunday and I could be out cleaning my car like everybody else and kind of pull it together for one day a
Yeah.
week, it was kind of all right. But it was becoming, unmanageable. The secrets were killing me inside.
Yeah. Well, we forget what lies we've told, and we have to remember what we've said. And it's like, oh,
Oh,
what did I say I was doing that day? And it's so hard work, so hard work.
yeah, I took a mortgage out in her name of 50 grand.
I guess she didn't know about that.
No, I defrauded my parents of about 150 grand.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, it was becoming dark, horrible. The deli closed down. I then went into doing chefing. So I was in an industry where cocaine, weed, whatever
Yeah, it's
you
mad.
wanted was in a kitchen. So I was bang at it again,
Yeah.
but obviously I couldn't fund my. So I had to be kind of, I started doing a few drug runs to Harrogate. Anything I possibly could just to feed what I needed to get fed.
Yeah. And like, you know, the whole thing you're saying, like, oh yeah, you know, I could still take the kids to school and do the lawn on a Sunday and all that, but it must have started taking its toll after a while. I mean, once the deli shut and all that, was that because of the, you know, the habit, or was it just not performing, or like why did the deli shut? And then
I took all the money
so
out of the deli.
it was starting to take its toll. Yeah. So
Oh
it was
God,
kind of
yeah,
like,
yeah.
right,
And
close it down.
yeah, and you know, I'd stopped turning up at football events, rugby events, you know, school parties. You know, I wasn't there. I was making excuses for all these. You know, I probably had, in the last 3 years of using, I probably had, you know, 16 engine blowouts and about 42, you know, punctures in my car. Because I didn't want and didn't want to go home. I was trying to make every excuse I possibly could to get drugs, and I'd slept in my car. You know, I often spent hours just in, I don't know, just in supermarket car parks, just taking drugs, watching the world go by, not answering my phone, not wanting to communicate, talk to anybody, taking the location off my phone, not sleeping, not washing, none of it. And I guess that's when it started to massively impact on family. My wife moved out. We started living in separate houses. I obviously couldn't manage my house. My mum and dad had to pay me rent. I was trying to work chef's hours, finding that difficult. Went from paid employment to doing agency work, because if I could just go do a day somewhere, I could get 300 or 400 quid, which would then give me something to be able to give to my drug dealer to get some gear off him.
Yeah.
And it just became, you know, massively overwhelming.
Yeah.
Tried to commit suicide. Thought that'd be an option. You know, and in 2020, in March, I was in a hotel. I planned my kind of suicide. I got a load of tablets, got some cocaine. I only dried sniffed. I didn't have any alcohol anymore. I had Diet Coke and Benson and Hedges Silver. And that particular night, I hadn't heard from anybody of my family. My 4 boys had kind of disappeared. My youngest, Evan, didn't really know what was going on. And I'd moved to Scarborough, so I was out of West Yorkshire. My wife had come with me, so we were making a fresh start. And you know, that night was incredibly dark. It was, you know, horrendous. I was just covered in blood. I hadn't eaten. I didn't want to eat. I was behind the curtains in a hotel room, wondering if my credit card would work. And then I ping a text message from my 11-year-old saying, "Dad, I love you. My mum's told me what you're doing, and I want you to come home. I love you." And for whatever reason, I guess they call it rock bottom. I got in my car and I drove home. And I walked through the door. I went into a spare bedroom. Wife came in, sat with me and said, "You need to get some help. You're a drug addict." And I'm like, am I a drug addict? I've got depression because I live with you. I suffer from hay fever. That's why my nose is bleeding. You know, I struggle to eat because I'm that depressed that, you know, I can't eat. And then this little kid came to the door and looked round at his dad, and that was it. That was the moment. I said to him, "Look, your dad's a drug addict." And I admitted it to him. He fell on the floor, cried his eyes out, went next door. Julia went next door, and she said to me, "You need to ring a rehab." And they went out in the morning. I found a number for a rehab, which is the one I'm sat in now. Rang that number and then went out and got a load of drugs and fucked off for another week or so.
And how old were you at this point?
I was 48.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We have to go for a final blowout, don't we? We always think, I've not had enough yet. I've not had enough yet. I disappeared into Leeds before I went into Ocean for a couple of days, and there was like, a police notice put out for me because I'd set off heading towards Blackpool and then just gone AWOL. Got myself a bottle of vodka, some other stuff, and just went missing for a couple of days. And then I showed up, and then I went back in, and I was like, right, now I'm ready. But I still had to have another blowout on the way there. I mean, why do we do that? It's like we've had enough, We always think it's going to be this amazing little last hurrah. It's always shit.
Yeah.
So how was yours?
Mine was really weird, actually, because it was COVID. Right. So I got picked up by the outreach director of this place who took me to a hotel. My wife was there and my son was there, and I got my bags out of the car. I had 2 bin bags. Got my bags out of the car because that's all I had. There was no see you later, love, hope everything works out. They tell me they went round the corner in the car, pulled over, and they just both breathed a huge sigh of relief that I was no longer in their lives. As every great drug dealer, I go upstairs into a hotel room, order a load of drugs, blag a load of drugs. And then I'm in a hotel room that's got this huge, great big ensuite with a bloody old dining room sort of table, weird, with a mirror. And I'm thinking, magic, mirror, drugs, I'll just sit in here for 5 days.
Yeah,
and I sat there for 5 days. Yeah, sat there for 5 days, didn't eat, sniffed cocaine for 5 days. I can remember waking up on the chair once with a kebab stuck to my face. And then the last day, I ran out of drugs. And I found a drug dealer on bloody Snapchat or wherever it was. And I can remember walking from the Bay House Hotel in Scarborough along Seymour Road to Lidl with one flip-flop on and a sock. And I walked and I picked up 3 or 4, 5 bags of cocaine. I gave him a watch. I said, here, have my watch.
Oh, I was going to say on tick, but no. I was going to say on tick, but you didn't know this guy. You just give him whatever you had, yeah.
Yeah, just here's a watch. That's all I've got. Have this watch. And, I walked back that night and the following morning I woke up and there were 3 bags of cocaine left. And the outreach director rang me and said, I'm coming to pick you up. And I went, oh, no, 1:30, please. He went, no, I'm coming at 10 in the morning. So I put 3 grams out and just smashed them all in 3 lines. And then walked into treatment centre.
And what was the date of that?
Rock and roll. 5th of the 4th, 2020.
5th of the 4th. So I went into my treatment centre on the 3rd, I think it was the 10th of March 2020. So literally like a couple of weeks before you.
I was still at it. Yeah. Can you imagine if we'd have met in Leeds?
Well, I mean, we probably did because, as I say, I'd have been out in Leeds that night, and then it would have been carnage. But I went in, and then 3 days after I went in, the first lockdown started, and then I was in there for 28 days. It worked. I stayed sober for 55 days. Then I came out, and I relapsed until the August, and then the August was when I got finally sober. So was that date? That was your sober and clean date, then? Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
It's funny because I
6 years
I
just
down
to
the back. Yeah, 6 years.
6 years, man. Yeah, congrats, man. Well done. Yeah, it's amazing.
Thank you.
And how long were you in that treatment centre for?
6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah.
6 weeks, and I was given the book. I was given this big blue book, and I looked at it and I thought, there's 570 pages. I ain't reading that. And then about 3 or 4 days in, somebody said, just read the first 103 pages. And started to read it. Didn't really get on with it. Didn't really like it. Pissed about in here for a bit. And then I guess my moment was I couldn't understand why people who'd come in after me were on step 2 and I was still on step 1. And I'm like, what's going on here then? And they were all, the counsellor and the staff would say, well, you're not ready, mate. You're not ready. You're not doing any work.
Yeah.
And then I sat in a lecture, and it was a step 3 lecture, and it talked about the step 3 prayer, relieve me of the bondage of self. And that was it. I thought, fuck, that's what I've always wanted. That's what I've always wanted, is to be relieved of me and relieved of all the shit that's gone on, all the stuff that's happened. I needed a space to be able to put it. And somebody said to me, if you write a thorough and fearless inventory on your life and write it all down, you'll start to get a bit of freedom. And I wrote it all down, and I wrote 30 odd pages. And I handed it to a counsellor who I'd never really spoken to whilst I was in here. And he said, right, next Thursday, we're going to do your step 5. And I walked into that room, and there was me, him, and God. And that guy just unraveled my life from the day I was born to where I am now, or where I was. And it was the most freeing experience I've ever had in my life. I recognised my part in a lot of stuff. I recognised that a lot of the stuff wasn't my fault, but I had to accept. 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours, I walked out, and I just went into room 14, which was my room, and there was a mirror on the wall, and I looked in that mirror, and it was the first time in 48 years I could even look in a mirror at myself. And I realised that, this narcissist, vindictive, horrible, dishonest person was no longer there. I had all them defects, and I have to work on those defects, but deep down I was just a sensitive drug addict who tried to anaesthetize himself for many years to avoid the pain and suffering that he'd had in his childhood, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Even when you got to the point where at 29 you thought you'd made it, that trauma was still in there. And when you were given the option for something that tricked that little neural pathway in your head, when you went into that toilet that day, and whatever twigged in your neural pathways, and it was like, here's the release that I've been looking for. I had it a little bit when I had my rugby, and then that was taken away from me, and now this is it. And there you go. And that's it. And then it was 17 years of that? Yeah. That's absolutely mad, Richard. Thank you for sharing that. And then I know it's tough, but it was like, what happened when you did your 6 weeks and then you came out of there? Was was your family waiting for you, or did you have a long slog after that to kind of build the trust and get things back in your life? Did you know exactly what you wanted, or
I left, and my plan was I was going to retire and walk my dogs on the beach. That was my plan.
Sounds cool.
I didn't really know how, because I ain't got any money, but I thought that sounds really good. And I walked back to the flat, went through the door. Rolo, my dog, was there. No, wife wasn't there. Evan wasn't there. I got the dog, and I walked down to the seafront of Scarborough, North Bay, and I walked along that seafront, and I was overwhelmed. I was on the phone to my mum, crying, because I just had sensory overload. I'd walked on that seafront many times and not seen the sea, not heard children, not heard seagulls, not sniffed barbecues, not heard anything. And then that day, it was just a massive sensory overload. And then I walked back up the hill, and I walked through the door, and Julia was there, and she put her arms out and she gave me a cuddle. And she said, I need to speak to you before we go get Evan. And she just said to me, you know, whilst you've been in there, I've looked at a few things, and I know today that it's not your fault. I know that because you know, you were born an addict. But what I will say to you is, in the last 17 years of my life with you, you haven't had any medicine. And what you've got today is a blue book, meetings, service, 12-stepping people. And you can have as much of that as you want, because that's your medicine. But the minute you pick up, you'll never ever see me again. And she put her hand out, and we shook hands, and that's it. And that is all I've ever done since leaving. I've followed what I was told, you know, 3 meetings a week, get a sponsor, go through the steps, go and help somebody. You know, and from walking out with £269 a month in benefits, a load of debt, 6 years down the line, I've got no debt. I'm the finance director of Ark House, the place that got me well. And, you know, my life revolves around my family. I'm present for all my 5 boys. I've got them all back in my life. I've got a beautiful mum. I watched my dad die in front of me, and we both had a smile at one another and accepted the fact that, you know, he thought I was all right the way he smiled at me, and I'd accepted everything that I'd done. And today I get a load of peace, a load of freedom. And that allows me to put all my passion and all my energies into, you know, helping people. And that's what it's all about. That's it.
It's a beautiful story, Richard. And you know what? There's so many similarities with my story. Not only that we're you know, I'm just coming up in 6 years, but you know, the kind of rehab story, but just the, you know, the sitting in the car. Like, yeah, I dabbled in cocaine. Cocaine was never my problem, but vodka was. And I would head off to work. My ex, when I was living in Hull, I'd be like, right, just today, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to get a little bottle, and then I'm going to phone in sick to work. And then it's just today. I won't do any more. And then that would become 3 weeks. I would end up quitting that job, you know, because I'd be going, sitting in my car in, like, I used to go and sometimes sit under the Humber Bridge. There was a little car park there, and I would sit up the back
I
there,
know that.
keep an eye on everyone coming in and out. And then I'd go and sit in a Sainsbury's or an Asda car park, because there's so many people about. They just think you're sitting there having your lunch. Do you know what I mean? I poured the vodka into a water bottle, so it was just that. And then I would never get myself completely ratted. And then I would drive home to just round the corner from the house, wait for them to get in, and then I would come in as if I'd been at work all day. Now, because my tolerance was so high, I could come in and just say, "Oh, I've just had a pint after work," because they could smell it on me. But I'd be completely fine after drinking a bottle of vodka all day. It's mad. Do you know what I mean? And the similarities of, like, getting into rehab, and okay, it didn't get me fully sober that time, but it set the kind of the groundwork to get me involved. And then when I got over here, it was fellowship all the way for me for at least the first 18 months to 2 years. I did 90 meetings in 90 days. I did what was suggested of me. I did the service, and I needed that. There were smart meetings, and I would go to them as well. But what I needed was the militancy of the fellowship for those first couple of years to just keep me, like, when I'm sharing, no one else is sharing. When they're sharing, I shut up. Whereas Smart's a bit like, oh, everyone can just chip in and all that. And that's fine. But what I needed was like this strong arm kind of recovery, and it worked. Do you know what I mean? It's like I don't go anymore, but I still keep in touch with a lot of the lads, and you know, as I say, I keep in touch with a few people from Ocean Recovery. I do this, I do my Instagram. I need to be steeped in the recovery world. Like, I don't think about alcohol anymore. I don't that's not an issue in my life anymore, but I need to still keep doing this because it keeps me grounded. Do you know what I mean? And it sounds like you're the same. So how long have you been finance director of Ark House?
2 and a bit years, I think.
Yeah, it's mad. And it's like some people get clean, get sober, and they don't want to talk about it ever again, and that's them, and that's fine. But it sounds like you're similar to me. Like I came out of there and I was over here living at my parents' house, a bit of universal credit, whatever was coming in, but not a pot to piss in, debt up to my eyeballs. You know what? And like 6 years later, I've got a wife, living in a lovely house, got 3 stepkids, and I've got a great job. And it's, you know what? All I did was give up one thing. And it sounds like you're the same, man. Yeah. What would you say with the hard? Yeah, sorry, go on.
Go on.
I was going to say, what's the hardest truth you've had to accept about yourself?
I think probably the hardest truth for me is the fact that I've got a load of ingrained behaviour. I've got a lot of learnt behaviour, and it's going to be with me for a long time. And just because I did a step 5, and just because I've got, I understand what my defects of character are, they're not going to come out. But what I don't have to do today is I don't have to lose my shit and go pick up a load of cocaine. I have the tools available to me to be able to deal with it within a sort of hour. So, you know, my go-to was either have an argument with my wife or pour a pint of milk down the sink to say I'm going to go out and get some milk. And then I'd go sit. It's amazing, isn't it, how drug addicts and alcoholics, they always seem to go to Sainsbury's, Lidl, Aldi, sit in these car parks. And, you know, I sat there once for 30 hours. I watched it shut and open twice. And what amazed me was that when I look back, I was crying my eyes out.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't understand why the hell I couldn't go in there and pick up a pint of milk, whereas all the other parents at that weekend were taking the kids out of the car, taking them in shopping, coming out and going home. And it was like, I just can't do that. I can't do it. You know, I share that quite often because it's, you know, it was just insane behavior.
It is. It's absolute madness. And you know, like you, like I would see it as I need to go to the shop, get us in stuff in for tea, but then I couldn't go in the shop, so I had to go to the petrol station, get myself a half bottle of vodka. I'd literally down that in a couple of minutes in the car, get in the shop, and then I could handle it. Do you know what I mean? Because everything else was just freaking me out unless I had my stuff in me, my medicine, as it were. Because it becomes medicine, you know, and it's just as we said before, you know, the lies compound and you don't know which story you've said, and it's like this and that. I mean, I got to the point where, like, she knew what was going on, but she said, "Why do you smell of alcohol today? I thought you were giving that up." And I said, "Oh, well, I was in Sainsbury's or Waitrose, and they were handing out little glasses of alcohol-free cider." I was like, fuck. Like, she could see I was drunk. Do you know what I mean? It's like... But it's just that was in my head. It was like, if I can't say, I've relapsed or I've had a drink today, it was just like, I'm just going to make up some more elaborate thing. Do you know what I mean? Thinking, I hope she doesn't say, well, let's go around and get some of that cider, because there was no people in there selling some non-alcoholic cider. Absolute bollocks. But we just do it. We talk out our arses. But you know, I had my sober level where I'd wake up in the morning and I'd be rattling, and if there was nothing in the house that I'd stashed or whatever, I'd have to wait till they went off to school and work, and then I could nip up to the petrol station and get my, like, a half bottle or a bottle. And then as soon as that, even when I had it in my jacket, I felt okay. It was like that placebo effect. But then I would start drinking it and I would get myself to like my sober level, which was about a half bottle. Once I had a half bottle in me, I could do things, I could function. So it sounds like you were probably like seven wraps, you know, 7 grams before you could actually function. And then it was like, right, now I'm going to add to that. And well, we didn't know which way that was going to go. If I got completely shit-faced on the rest of the day, I'd be passed out by the time they get home, or I'd actually be on form and if I'd taken it easy. But yeah, but we just there's no stopping. There's no stopping at all. And that's where people need to understand it. Like, alcohol to me is killing more people than all the drugs put together. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't an issue with cocaine, because of course there is. But I think a lot of people are like, get a couple of pints in them and it's like, right, let's go get a bag. Do you know what I mean? Would they be doing that without? I mean, I know you were saying you dry sniffed a lot as well, but a lot of people are, once they've had a couple of pints in them, the inhibitions have gone, and they're like, let's get a bag in, And ketamine's a massive issue as well. It's crazy. I bet you see some crazy sites coming in through archives.
We're just about to. In fact, tomorrow we're going down to Sheffield to meet some people who are just putting some stuff together now for ketamine, and we're interviewing them for our podcast.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the things that I'm passionate about now, a bit like yourself, is we started this podcast out of a bedroom in our house, and we are it's ended up that In Recovery has gone from a very small audience to a huge audience.
Yeah.
We're a rehab in Scarborough, and through meeting Lee, we were in the Sunday Times last week as one of the most influential podcasts, in the country.
Amazing.
It's bizarre.
Yeah. But this is it. People are starting to take notice.
Yeah. And if one person gets clean from all this, then that's brilliant. That's amazing.
Exactly that. Yeah, it is. It's amazing what you're doing, and I just thank you for putting it together and getting it out there as well, because there are so many podcasts out there, but I love it all. I'm constantly listening to podcasts about recovery, and I think that the more there are, the better, because not everybody's going to listen to yours or mine, but they're going to find one out there, and if it helps someone and then they can share it to someone else, then we're doing the magic. Because as you say, like, yeah, you can go to a meeting, but there's only a handful of people in that meeting. Like our meetings over here, when I went, there was only like 12 people to begin. Well, in fact, there was about 4 or 5 to begin with. And I think we got our numbers up to 20. But that's only a handful. But if you're putting out as a podcast, you're helping so many more people. So, it's just amazing what you're doing. What I was going to say was, what's something sobriety gave you and cleanliness gave you that nobody talks about?
I mean, probably for me, it allows me to be able to sit with me.
Yeah.
In a quiet
accept who you
morning.
are.
Yeah. I used to hate me, and now I don't. And now I can sit, and I can sit and be still.
Yeah. The similarities are amazing, because that was me. Once I'd got myself a little business running, and I moved out of my parents. I moved into a little thatched cottage up here in the hills, and I remember thinking, do I need a TV? I don't want a TV. Okay, I had my phone, I had my laptop, but I enjoyed just stillness, quiet. Maybe I'd read a book, and it was learning to be okay in my own skin, because I always needed distraction to switch off the noise in my head. And the easiest way to do that was drink a bottle of vodka, and that's it. Once you can learn to be okay with who you are, then I think you're already there. Do you know what I mean? And I think even people that maybe don't have a problem with drugs and alcohol, I think they can do with switching off a little bit and just learning to be okay with themselves, because we have too many distractions in this day and age. Our phones are constantly on. We're constantly swiping and scrolling and doing whatever. Yeah, it's mad. So last couple of little questions, Richard, if you've got time, mate. No, we're going over the hour here, but if someone's listening to this right now and secretly wondering whether alcohol or drugs is a problem, what would you say directly to them?
If you're probably thinking about it, it probably is. Pick up the phone and speak to somebody.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. If you're thinking about it, you're already halfway there to thinking, I've got a problem. And because most people, People that don't have a problem don't think about it. They're not constantly thinking, well, where's my next drink? Where's my next drug coming from? And yeah, exactly. One habit that keeps you steady, Richard?
Lee start. This one is so ice bath every morning.
Nice. How long do you stay in that for?
I normally stay in for, if it's 5 degrees, I stay in 5 minutes. If it's 3 degrees, it's 3 minutes. Yeah, right. It's cool. It's nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's something... I know I keep saying this. I've had quite a few people on that are into the cold water therapy. And I keep saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I will do it eventually at some point, but I haven't even done the shower thing. Like, I go in the sea every now and then, and I'm all right with that. But yeah, I just not got. What with me, I'm like, I need to buy myself a nice ice bath out in the thing. No, I don't. I just need to get a wheelie bin and fill it with ice water, and I'll be fine. Do that. That's exactly, what I need to do. I just need to stop making excuses and get it done, because I keep hearing it's like it just changes your day. Your day is like can be here, but you have an ice bath. It's up here. Yeah. So I don't know why I'm not doing it yet. Yeah. I'll obviously put your podcast in the show notes. So a podcast, a film, or a book about recovery or hope.
Which will I choose?
No, just like, so if you've watched a film, listened to a podcast, or read a book that's really kind of about recovery or hope, that's kind of thought, oh, that's a really good film or a book or a podcast, something that's like kind of changed you a little bit.
There was two short documentaries that I watched when I was in treatment. One was called The Bag Lady.
Okay, I've not heard of that one.
Oh, it's really old, right? And there was one called Wet House. And they were like, they're so old, are these documentaries. I don't even know whether you'd find it, but The Bag Lady was a lady who walked around London just with a carrier bag, and she was called The Bag Lady. And she was living on the streets. And all she had was, the only identification she had was this bag. And it was just like, just eye-opening. And then the one about the wet house was just a load of guys who had got the onset of wet brain. Oh, and how it was impacting them.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I didn't even hear it. I didn't even know about that. Was it Korsakoffs? And I'd never even heard of it until I got into rehab, and then they were telling us about that, and I was like, Jesus, yeah. So, last question: one word that describes your life now.
Peaceful.
Love it, man. I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much, Richard. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, man. And getting to know your story, getting to know you. So anytime you fancy coming over to Ella, man, give me a shout, mate. And
I will do.
Yeah. So thank
you. Thank you so much for your time as well.
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you. Cheers, man.
All right.
Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much to Richard. 6 years, peaceful, his words. The thing that keeps staying with me is the phone call from his dad every Friday. His dad, the area director, having to ring him formally at work and congratulate him on being the top performer in the Northern Division. And it was all very formal, Mr. Chapman, I'd like to, congratulate you and all that. And he's hating every second. He's like, why can't we just do this at home? Wishing Richard was more like his brother, quietly lending money in a corner, not being the outspoken, performing and successful banker that he became. Why was he not proud of that? Why was he not saying, I'm so chuffed that you're doing this? It's tough that he was struggling with that from an early age. It's a complicated man to have in your head for 30 years. No wonder he needed something to make it quiet. And then the Burberry duffel coat, a Benson and Hedges packet on a pub table, 500 quid and 17 years. What gets me most is the simplicity of what brought him back. An 11-year-old's text message, Dad, I love you, come home. And somehow in a hotel room covered in blood with a plan that went in one direction, that was enough. That was all he needed. Richard, thank you so much for everything you shared today. Go and find Arc House and the In Recovery podcast. Both are in the show notes. as always, guys, take care of yourselves, stay safe, stay sober, and stay supportive. I'll see you next week. Love you all. Bye-bye.